Alright guys, welcome to the Thursday directions video. Just going over our next group here and our next conquistador, and that is Francisco Pizarro versus the Incas. And their leader, you can't really see here, Atalupa. We'll get to him. But yeah, so so yesterday we covered the Aztecs. We looked at Cortez versus the Aztecs, so now we're moving on to our next one, which is Francisco Pizarro versus the Incas. And the Incas are here in like modern day Peru and Argentina, but they're on kind of the west coast there. It's a very mountainous region, as you can see here. Would be their capital. So if you want to jot down the capital, it's called Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu, and it's on these. Basically, it's on top of these mountains. So obviously, the mountains are a physical feature, great at providing some sort of natural defense, I guess, against your enemies. So you always have the high ground. But Machu Picchu, pretty crazy, as you can see here in some of these pictures. Obviously the views are stunning, but just being able to build up here and flatten out the land and make it livable for a lot of people is a pretty impressive feat in itself. And to even get there, it's pretty treacherous, right? So you have roads, obviously look more like bike paths. You'll have to go across some type of like bridges that are made from basically like, I don't know, weeds, as you can see. Weeds and kind of like strung out bark. But yeah, it looks basically like a suspension bridge they got a Robin Hood. So I don't know how confident I would be walking over it, but obviously they've been doing it for a very long time, so they probably have mastered it. Another interesting thing that they have to do is called terrace farming. We see this in like ancient Japan as well. You see if it's impossible to like farm this cliffside here, so you kind of cut it out and kind of make it like a retaining wall. If you like retaining wall at your house, you can do this. You're just kind of creating your own flat land, so you're able to farm and cultivate it. But it just takes that extra step to set up the terrace itself, and then you're able to plant and kind of creating your own flat ground that way. So it's pretty interesting. So if you want to write that down, terrace farming. And the question is like, all the way up in the mountains, what can you even grow? And the answer is potatoes. So potatoes are their number one like food source. So if you want to write that down, potatoes is like the Incas' go-to food. Obviously, potatoes are resilient. You can grow them everywhere. That's what we see in other like harsh climates. Potatoes become like the go-to food, like Northern Ireland, Russia, right, where the weather and the climate isn't so good for farming. Potatoes can always kind of survive. And so the Incas had over 100 different types of potatoes. So it wasn't like just the same potato for every meal. They kind of had obviously a whole bunch of different varieties to kind of spice things up. So we have that. The ceramic jars we'll kind of skip over, but again, this is just to help. Again, usually not a lot of water sources, so we have a lot of ceramic jars to help bring liquids back up the mountain. So you kind of have all these, and they kind of just became more extravagant as it's gone on. And we know everything we need to know about the Incas. For the Kupu right here, oh, excuse me. The Kupu, this is the Incan database. It's basically a series of strings. I literally have no clue how to read it. I don't know how anyone even figured this out. It's mind-boggling to me. But yeah, apparently these series of strings tells us the information that we need. And again, I don't understand it. I can't believe that this is even a real thing, but it is. Even here with like the coding system on the screen, I still have no clue. All I can tell you guys is I know that people can see something like this, and they can read it and take information out of it, and I really have no clue how to do it. So if you can figure it out, let me know, but it seems I'm just taking their word for it, because this is how they come up with this stuff. So it's called the Quipu. Let's write this down. This will be on the quiz, right? The Incan database. So we have the Aztecs Codex, which is how we figured out most of the stuff with the Aztec, and then for the Inca, we have the Quipu, which gives us all the information we need to know about them. Incan mummies are kind of interesting for right here in particular. A lot of them that are from the elite or the rich class have this elongated head. Obviously, when you're a child, you can kind of do things to people's skulls to adjust their shape of their skull. Like there's a Native American tribe in America called the Flatheads, where they really put a board and string it together so all their heads just would be like flat on the front. So it's kind of something similar to that, but the elongated skull was supposed to give you kind of some more status in Incan culture. And obviously, once the upper class, the rich elite, started to do this, then the lower class started to kind of copy it. Very similar to like what like people do with like celebrities. Like, what are celebrities wearing? Perfect. I'm gonna start wearing that. So it's kind of that trickle down effect. But instead of like I got the new Jordans or I got this new clothes brand, it's hey, you gotta just shape your head when you're a baby. All right. So the Incas had the most advanced technology in the New World and a large population. Yet Francisco Pizarro was able to defeat them because he captured their leader Atahualpa. Okay, and he actually holds them ransom. Now he was considered Atahualpa was considered to be a living god, kind of like a pharaoh would be in Egypt. So whatever the ransom was set at, it was met. And I believe he was able to fill up like an entire room full of gold and different jewelries. And then once he was able to get the gold, he still kills Atahualpa. All right, so he gets all the gold, still kills him, and that's kind of the end of Pizarro and the Incas. It's not as exciting as the Aztecs, where they fight it out on the bridges of Tenochtitlan for months at a time. This one's kind of more cut and dry, not really super exciting, but it just kind of showcases kind of the Spaniards' craftiness of using kind of this divine figure, Atahualpa, where people think he's a living god, against them. All right, so here's some of the review terms that we've been looking at here. The sextant, which is obviously the number one sailing device. That would be like the newest technology. You can read stars. Conquistador, Cortez, Columbus, the caravel, the ship, the Dutch East India Company. We'll get to all that coming up. The last little bit of today is just looking at the rest of the conquistadors and then kind of maybe looking at the Columbian Exchange. So the conquistadors here, we got the three. We got Hernando Cortez, which is against the Aztecs. We have Francisco Pizarro, who went against the Incas and Atahualpa. Then our last guy is Juan Ponce de Leon, and he discovers Florida in 1513. So we kind of advanced a few years since, Columbus, 1492. So we've kind of gone ahead a little bit. St. Augustine, Florida, discovered by Ponce de Leon, established by Pedro Martinez, Pedro Martinez, the baseball player, Pedro Mendez. It's the oldest permanent village in North America mainland. So obviously St. Augustine ends up becoming like, I don't know, Tampa Bay, something like that, somewhere around there. But St. Augustine, Florida is still there. It's still a big city, but I think it's just across the river or across the bay from Tampa Bay. Let's skip that. But Ponce de Leon, he's here. He's looking for the Fountain of Youth, and he's looking for El Dorado, the City of Gold. So he's kind of showing up on a myth. Never finds them, obviously. Never found the Fountain of Youth or El Dorado, but the settlement still stays there even to this day. All right. The last thing I need you guys to do is just jot down this slide here. It's called the Columbian Exchange. The next few days here, moving on to next week, we're going to be looking at kind of the triangle trade between the Americas, Europe, Africa, and so on and so forth. So if you want to just jot down, so this is what the Americas, mainly Central America here, is giving to Europe: squash, turkey, cocoa, peanut, avocado, pumpkin, pineapple, tomato, syphilis, peppers, tobacco, guasava, vanilla, sweet potatoes, quinine, potato, and maize. Obviously, jot down the stuff in red, the most important. Europe is giving to Africa trinkets, liquor, and guns, and Africa is bringing to South America a bunch of stuff. Obviously, Africa is massive: olive, onion, grape, citrus fruits, things like cattle, never been here before, the flu, diphtheria, coffee beans, the turnip, the peach, the pear, sheep even, typhus, whooping cough, the banana, the honeybee, sugarcane, wheat, pigs, measles, smallpox, rice, barley, oats, horses, dandelions, malaria, and obviously slaves. And we'll get to the slave trade later on. So jot down that. So some of the questions obviously would be like, during the Columbian Exchange, what two items were sent from the Americas to Europe? Potato, maize. Okay, so those will be kind of the questions. So just jot this down. You'll be able to use it on the quiz. It'll just make life a lot easier on you. And then Monday, we'll start to kind of go through and we'll look at the slave trade and the different classes that go with it and all kind of that stuff. But yep, that's all it is for now. I'll talk to you guys later.